Hey everyone, this is Tina with Homewood Nursery and Garden Center in Raleigh. I'm here today with some tips on gardening during drought. So yeah, it's no news that we are in a drought, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm really freaking sad about how it's going. It's a struggle to cope with the damage that we're seeing in the gardens and the plants being stressed, and to look at all of the work that you put into things and that the love that you put into your garden, and then see them all struggling. So you're not alone. That's what I'm trying to say. So today, let's go over some tips and techniques for how to cope with drought in the garden and try to make the best of the situation. Here we go. So I'm going to cover some things that might seem that you already know that are kind of obvious, and then maybe a few things that you don't know. But number one is mulch. Mulch is so much your friend right now. Mulch is like the deal. So get out there and make sure you don't have any bare ground out there. Cover your garden beds, the root zones around your plants with about 3 to 4 inches of mulch of your choice. Anything is fine that you want to use, preferably though, organic mulch. Wood chips and wood-based mulches like shredded hardwood are great. They're probably some of the more effective ones, but you can also use pine straw and other mulches that you like if you have on hand. That's fine. Composted leaves, those are great too. And when you're applying mulch, focus on the root zone around the plant. Picture the roots are like kind of spreading out underneath the canopy of foliage, and that's where you want to focus your efforts. Don't pile mulch against the base of the plant where the trunk comes down and starts to flare out into the roots. You want the mulch to kind of taper and disappear right at that point. Don't want mulch like piled up against that spot. Less of a concern now because we don't have rain to make the wet conditions that rot the stems when that happens, but you don't want that mulch in place when it finally starts raining again and you've forgotten about it, and then it's sitting there causing problems. So like I said, about a 3 to 4 inch layer, and focusing on the root zones. Next, water, obviously, right? That's so great. Apply water. Thanks, Tina. Well, yeah, okay, but 1 to 2 times a week if you can. We have restrictions. Check your local municipality to see what they are. But deeply, 1 to 2 weeks is what you want to do for most plants. They want to get a soaking, then they want to dry out a little. When you water deeply, you encourage the roots to go deeper where there's less stress from the temperature extremes near the surface of the soil. And you also want to water so that you spread out around the plant, not just like in kind of one little area, but around the zone and a little bit beyond the plant if you can, because that'll encourage the roots to creep their way outwards. Then you'll have a larger, more robust root system, and that plant is going to be more resilient to stress, including, you guessed it, drought stress. Water in the morning preferably, or in the evening. Evening is a great time to water. You know, plants aren't trying to do as much in the evening. They're kind of resting too. They can take in the water, they can have a rest and kind of be ready to go for the day ahead of them. So, but early morning is good too. You lose less water when you water in the morning and the evening. For trees, you could use irrigation bags. You know, you can get the bags and put them, especially if you've got a new tree, something under 3 years old or whatever, that could really help. So the water can drip out of the bag over the roots slowly over time. For my container gardens, I actually like to put saucers under them. You know, a lot of times you hear you got to watch out with saucers, plants aren't sitting in water, and that's true. But in the summer, plants are taking up water so quickly, typically, that's less of an issue. And I often just do that every summer, so I'm not out there every single day with the hose. And in a case like this, it's extra helpful. So you can put them underneath especially your thirsty plants. I've got like a hydrangea that would want to wilt every single day if I didn't have a saucer under it. So try that with your container plants. Another note on watering, if you have drip irrigation, you have the ability to lay it down or rearrange it. Try laying it down in rows between the plants and letting it run into those areas between the plants so that it goes towards the root zones, but the plants have to kind of go out towards the water versus just like one spot, dropping it in one area. That's another thing that can help encourage them to be a little bit more resilient as the roots creep out for the water and get stronger and more robust. Okay, so here's some key tips that you may not know, and if the editing seems weird on this video, I might have decided to cut this in first before I talk about watering, because I really want you to know these. A lot of people, they know they have to water if and when they can, but right now, don't do any heavy pruning. You know, in summer, sometimes I like to get out there and like buzz the plants and all that. Don't do that now. That's just going to cause more stress to the plants. And pruning can stimulate growth. You don't really want to stimulate growth when they don't have a lot of water to support that growth. So a little light trimming here and there, that's fine. You want to trim a wayward few shoots and neaten things up, that's okay, but just don't do any heavy pruning. And also, don't fertilize. Fertilizing also stimulates growth, and that's not sustainable right now. You know, they don't have the water to support extra canopy. So you don't want to do that. And also, fertilizers contain salts, and that can burn plant roots. If it's just sitting, or at least I should say synthetic fertilizers do. Organic fertilizers don't, and if you put them down, they're just going to kind of sit there and they're not going to do a whole lot until moisture comes in, we get rain, and between that and the heat and the microbes, it all breaks down. But it's kind of not a lot of point in doing it right now. And now's the time that some people will fertilize their warm season lawns. You don't want to do that now because, again, it goes back to the issue of fertilizer salts and burning the roots on those lawns. The other thing, the last thing, or one of the last things, is prioritizing plants. You know, we may get to the point where you really can't water. We are getting to the point where you can't do tons of watering. So now you want to prioritize the plants that mean the most to you. Sentimental value plants, high dollar value plants, whatever reason you love that plant and you don't want it to, you know, struggle or die. Make sure that those are the ones that get watered first. And also conifers, a lot of people plant emerald arborvitae and green giant arborvitae for screening, and they are a conifer kind of in the same group of plants like spruces and pines and needled evergreens. Those guys, you're not going to know they're in trouble a lot of times until it's almost too late. Like by the time you see the damage, the damage has been done and they're past it. So you don't want to get to that point with those. And so, especially if they're new in the ground, at least a few years or younger, those, and they're important to you, like, yeah, this is an important screening. I want to make sure I have this privacy screen. That would be another set of plants to prioritize. And then the last little tip is you can use shade cloth or row covers to help protect plants against intense heat and kind of keep things cooler around the plants, and that's just literally like draping them over. But people will actually do all kinds of setups. If you look online, people will set up umbrellas seriously over plants, or like temporary structures with shade screening. So that's something to look into if you think that you want to give that a try. Those are my tips for the moment. We did a post of maybe about a week and a half or so ago. If you scroll back in the feed, you'll see graphics with these tips, so you could save them or print them or whatever, but it's basically the same set of tips, but in like a visual format that you can just read. So look for that if you think it'll be helpful to you. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please drop any comments that you have into any questions that you have into the comments, and you know, peace out and as happy as you can gardening. It's so beautiful out there.